In a shocking revelation, Joe Rogan reveals that Kamala Harris will not appear on his show unless special conditions are met. Well, Joe himself says that this is not Kamala Harris declining to come on, just conditions. Dare I say, oh, come on, man. You know, Joe's a nice guy. He's being polite, and he's trying to make this work. I respect that. But this is clearly a refusal to appear on the show. I'm going to keep it simple before we get into all the hubbub and all the nonsense going around. I'm going to break the details down for you. But let me just say, if I come to you, my friends, and I say, good sir, would you like to come on Timcast IRL? We will fly you out. You choose the date. We're live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we do a members only Monday through Thursday. If you're here for that, that'd be great. Would you like to come on the show? If you respond with, I'll do a half an hour if you come to me, I'm going to be like, my dude, this is a live in-studio show with multiple hosts. How do we bring it to you? Now, to be fair, I would call that declining, right? Joe Rogan is a one-on-one sit-down conversation. But come on. If Joe says, hey, come on the show, would you? And you say, you fly to me, you bring the cameras, you build the studio, do it on my terms and for only 1 hour. That's not the Joe Rogan experience, okay? The Joe Rogan experience is when you experience the sit down between them both. I think, in fact, that would be the first episode ever where Joe Rogan leaves his studio to go and interview someone somewhere else, which is not the podcast at all. So Joe is being nice. He says, well, they haven't declined. It's just I think the show is better served here. And now they're fact checking. Yet Unusual Whales has tweeted Kamala has declined, which she did. And I think it's a fair assessment, albeit it needs some context. And we're going to break this down. What does this mean for the race? And the best part is Andrew Schultz talking to Charlemagne the God. Wow, we're going to break this one down for you, my friends. And Charlemagne's like, I'm just as big as Joe Rogan. And he's like, what? Like, are you nuts? Bro, I'm going to prove Charlemagne, dude, my guy. Oh, look, my friends, I not only host the show, but I'm also the CEO of the company, and I'm constantly doing research, trends, algorithms, etc., to figure out how to make a show like this work. Part of the reason why my morning show and Timcast IRL do work is because of my deep knowledge of the YouTube lore. Understanding what works and what doesn't, how to do things, etc. I try to pay attention to the mechanisms so that we can make a good functioning show. For this, I have always known that Charlemagne is nowhere near as big as Joe Rogan. In fact, Charlemagne barely rivals me. No disrespect, Charlemagne. You got a big show, but you're not going to go up against a king. Come on. Joe Rogan is the godfather of podcasting. He created this. He didn't invent it, but he modernized it, revolutionized it, and made it mainstream. He was first in and best dressed. So let's take a look at this story, and then we'll go through what's currently going on. Trump, of course, is still winning in all the polls and in the national level polls, the battleground states, as well as the betting markets. Newsweek says Joe Rogan refuses Kamala Harris's conditions for podcast interview. Now, I can respect this, but here's what's funny. Take a look at the New York Post. Joe Rogan shoots down Kamala Harris podcast interview over campaign demands. Okay, technically true, but that's so unfair. If someone said, I want to come on your show, Tim, but change your show, do a different show and do it with me instead. I say this all the time. I invited Hassan Piker. Come out here and come on the show. Kyle Kalinske. They said no. Well, Kyle said yes and then kind of disappeared. Hassan said, I'll figure it out. But I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad. Because these guys host their own shows. And I've said this every time. Look, man, it's one thing to get a liberal who refuses to come on. It's another thing if they're like, hey, look, I host my own show Monday through Friday. I can't really travel to do your show. Why don't you do my show instead? And I say, fair point. We both host shows. It's not fair to me to require someone to give up on their show to come do mine. So it'd be a favor. Here's Newsweek. Joe Rogan said he's still in talks to have an interview with Kamala Harris, but that he won't agree to the terms suggested by her campaign. Quote, actually, let me just show you the tweet in question here. Rogan also addressing censorship, by the way, because he was being censored. This is getting crazy. Rogan says, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to just have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen. Elon Musk says, good clarification. I would definitely watch that podcast. Hour 2 would be, and then it's a face melting. Face melting indeed. Yeah, Joe Rogan recently had a show where he was talking about his interview with Trump, expectations, what happened. And a lot of people were commenting that Joe is trying very hard to be nice to Kamala because he wants this interview to happen. And that's fair. But look, guys, Kamala's done. She's cooked. I'm already seeing a bunch of liberals saying she has to go on for 3 hours and that's it. You see, here's the problem. If Kamala Harris ducks Joe Rogan, Trump's going to say she couldn't even do 3 hours. If she tries to do an hour of special treatment, and the response already from Democrats, because they're lining it up, is, yeah, well, she's the vice president. She's very busy. Yeah, really? Okay, look, they're both campaigning. And why would you pass up the largest podcast platform? Why would you do it? It makes no sense. Here's Michael McFaul responding to Joe Rogan. Come on, Joe. It's the last week of the campaign. She's a little busier than you. Get on a private plane and do the interview, even if just for an hour. Americans want to hear it. So who is this guy? This is a professor of political science and blah, blah, blah at Stanford, ambassador to Russia. Look, man, the idea that Joe Rogan would fundamentally change the format of his show for a candidate. Now, Timcast IRL, we do road shows. So when the Libertarian Convention was here, we were going to do the show from the Libertarian Convention and interview RFK Jr. But Timcast does do road shows. It's not out of the ordinary. In fact, we have a mobile studio. We have several. And, you've seen them. We went to Austin. And that's because our show's different. We do a nightly news commentary show with a panel of guests and talk about stuff. We are not you come here, you sit down for 3 hours, but we are in person only. So when Donald Trump wanted to do an interview, I have no problem saying we're going. So we got the full show with RFK Jr. and it was an ancillary benefit that Donald Trump was going to be there. And we pushed really hard. Can we get Trump on for just a few minutes? We got 17 minutes with the man. It was great. But we got 2 hours with RFK Jr. And that's what we were hoping to accomplish. That's why we went to the Libertarian Convention, not to cross our fingers and hope we get Trump. We've made several requests I got to be honest. We haven't really made any strong requests to do a full sit down with Donald Trump. That's true. Or Kamala Harris. But we would probably use our mobile studio setup to go to Trump wherever he may be. I think it's fair to say Rogan does not do this. He's headquartered in Austin. He does in-person shows there. Asking him to fly around. Take a look at this. Did you just see that happen? You saw that. If you're watching, Unusual Whales tweeted, Kamala Harris has reportedly declined the Joe Rogan podcast appearance. There was a community note that says Kamala did not decline, Joe Rogan says. I quote tweeted this just a moment before we're starting this recording. And I said, this is not true. She was offered terms. She said no. She offered other terms. That's declining someone's invite. And sure enough, it disappeared. It's gone. Interesting. Well, I do love how the narrative battle is going to go wild. This is New York Post, as I already showed you. Joe Rogan shoots down Kamala Harris podcast interview over campaign demands. It's just not fair. Joe lays out, hey, here's my offer, take it or leave it. And they say no. And now it's like, oh, Joe Rogan's saying no. They're trying to flip it. Come on, New York Post, do better. But there's another big story in what's currently going on. This is the last week until we have 1 week to the election day. The election is currently underway, and election day will be particularly interesting. Joe Rogan interviewed Donald Trump. The episode has some 37 million views, I believe, in just a couple of days. And it was censored in more ways than one. Now, the first issue is not so much a big deal. Joe Rogan initially unlisted the video because there was an upload problem with it was supposed to go live on all platforms at the same time, but YouTube went live first, so they unlisted it for a little bit and then relisted it. But YouTube actually censored the show. YouTube, for whatever, and we'll get into the reasons, the claimed reasons, you could not search for the episode. Okay, he was relisted. It was publicly available. The biggest, and there were two major problems. One, you couldn't search for it. And two, it would not appear on trending. This is a dirty game that YouTube plays. And the real issue, in my opinion, is that YouTube puts their finger on the scale to make sure certain narratives don't get larger than other narratives. So let's take a look at Timcast music, right? Guys, we've got a bunch of music, and we have a new song coming out. I don't know if I have it pulled up, actually. Oh, I do. We have a song coming out called Hunger Inside, and it's a zombie Halloween special. Okay, now, I'm not trying to promote this. You can check it out to Timcast Music. What I'm pointing out is when we released our first song, Only Ever Wanted, and our second song, Genocide, with the amount of views they received, they hit the top of trending on YouTube. Surprise, surprise. They were, I think, Only Ever Wanted was trending at like number 19. Genocide was trending at number, I think, like 20 something. And I was like, wow, look at that. With only a couple 100,000 views, those songs were trending. Every song we've released since then has not hit trending, despite even being larger. That is, we put out the song Together Again, which is a cover of the Daily Wire song. And it got more views, more downloads, more purchases than all of our other songs, and it wasn't trending. Now, why is that? It's because YouTube figured it out. When we launched the channel, it was brand new, and it wasn't flagged. We created a new channel, we put the song on it, we put it out, everybody watches it. Not everybody, but a ton of people watch it. And so the YouTube algorithm goes, whoa, look at this new channel that's skyrocketing in popularity. Better put it on trending. Then the YouTube machine behind the scenes goes, oh no, that's Tim Pool. Get it out of there. This is why the biggest podcast, currently, not the biggest in the world just yet, because Joe's actually done bigger, wasn't trending. Now that's crazy, isn't it? Here's a story from Newsweek. Joe Rogan addresses claims YouTube censoring Donald Trump interview. Rogan wrote on X, there is no issue with YouTube censoring the Trump episode. It was just supposed to go live on both Spotify and YouTube at the same time, and there was a glitch in Spotify's upload system, so we delisted the YouTube link until it's fixed. However, several days after Rogan said there was no issue with the video listing, he posted the entire episode on X saying, since there's an issue with searching for this episode on YouTube, here's the full podcast interview with Trump. Rogan also reposted a post by David Heinemeier Hansen, CTO of software company Basecamp and racing driver, who wrote, tried to find the Rogan Trump interview on YouTube, but no matter what I search, it's not coming up. Would be beyond bonkers if they're actively trying to suppress it. Must be a glitch, right? No way. For some searches on Monday night, the original 3-hour interview didn't appear prominently, YouTube said in a statement. Short excerpts uploaded by Joe Rogan channel appeared, but we know it was frustrating for users looking to find the full video. We've worked to resolve this, and viewers will begin seeing the full podcast in more YouTube search results soon. That is, people noticed if you typed in Joe Rogan Trump, it wouldn't come up. YouTube says we fixed it. I then searched Trump Rogan and Rogan Trump, and it still wouldn't come up for me. Newsweek contacted Google, which owns YouTube, for additional information. During the episode, Trump reflected, this we get. Rogan also took to X to address the potential episode featuring Democratic nominee Harris. So here is the video, my friends. It is not trending, despite having 37 million views. I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, fine. I guess Mr. Beast is bigger, but this is the president. Trending is not about how many views you get. It's about how many views you get in a period of time. So there was this thing they used to have on Twitter before it was X called Thunderclap. What would happen is everybody would sign up for Thunderclap with a pre-written message and a hashtag. By signing up for the app, you gave the app permission to tweet on your behalf. Then, all at the same time, on the same day, it would tweet out 15,000 times, something like UFC fight or whatever it is people were promoting. This would create a trend on Twitter because when they see everybody tweet something all at once, it's a trend. That's what trending is. There was also something called Trends Map where you could track these things. Getting 37, Joe Rogan's podcast with Trump got over 10 million in, the show went up at I think like 9:30 p.m. and it ended up getting 10 million by 9 a.m. Actually, before 9 a.m. So overnight, and I got to tell you, this was a Friday night. To get that many views on a Friday night is insane, okay? I'm talking about Friday night is the worst algorithmically for any post because people are going out. Kids are asleep and adults are partying. They're not watching shows. That's why our lowest, Fridays actually tend to be pretty highly rated for us on Timcast IRL. But only because people will watch the Friday episode Saturday and Sunday, which gives us a boost. But on Friday night, concurrent viewerships and initial viewership is lower than the rest of the days for obvious reasons. This is why a lot of people don't like working on weekends. That being said, my weekend morning shows get way more views than everybody else. And that's probably because nobody works on the weekends. But I digress. This is, in my opinion, censorship. Here you go. Oh, boy. Joe Rogan showed Donald Trump unedited. Millions adored it. And did it affect Donald Trump's odds when any of the negative stuff, the campaign rally, Tony Hinchcliffe? Of course not. Donald Trump now has 66.1 to win against Harris's 33.8 on Polymarket. Over at 538, they're giving him 54% to win. And over Nate Silver's got him at 55. It's been wonderfully great for Joe Rogan. But within this story comes the narrative machine. Well, let me show you this. This one's hilarious. Ali London says, Charlemagne claims his show is bigger than Joe Rogan's. You think Joe Rogan's bigger than The Breakfast Club? The radio host interview with Kamala attracted over 500,000 views in 11 days. Rogan's Trump interview surpassed 23.7 million after a day. Yo, man, I wish I had the diluted... Look, Charlemagne, my friend, your show is comparable to Timcast IRL. No dig. That's me. That's me. Our viewership is comparable. In fact, I got to be honest, we get a lot more views than you do, but you got a big show. You got a big show. Let me play this clip of Andrew Schultz and Charlemagne the God.
There's no bigger place to go in the business than Joe Rogan right now.
The Breakfast Club is pretty big.
Fam.
No.
Fam, stop it. Stop it.
You think Joe Rogan's bigger than Breakfast Club?
10 times the size.
Why do you think that?
Just look at the numbers. I did 10 million views in 2 days.
On what?
On the interview. Between the clips and the interview.
Soldier Boy did 15 in a day.
That's Soldier Boy.
And who was Soldier Boy at that time?
Exactly. Who Soldier Boy is one of the most well-known artists in the world. Hold on. You really think that your platform is bigger than Rogan?
Just as big, easily.
Come on, bro. Let's look at the recent interviews on Breakfast Club compared to the recent interviews on Rogan.
Do it.
Let's have a nice...
Yo, this is wild. All right. How you want to do this, Charlemagne? You want to just go audio side podcast? All right. Let me see if I can pull up that there Breakfast Club on Chartable. Chartable is going to be sunsetted, but for those that don't know audio podcast, I'm in industry. I run a business, and so that's me. I check everything. I know metrics. I know analytics. I know sales numbers. Now, hard to balance all of these things all at the same time, but here's the Breakfast Club, home of We the People, an audio town hall with Vice President Kamala Harris, Charlemagne the God, and you. Wow. Hey, look at that. Charlemagne, you're number 105 in the world. That's pretty good. That's out of all the podcasts in the world, number 105 on Apple, number 198 in the United States on Spotify. Hey, you're just making it to the top 200. That's usually where we track things. That's pretty good, man. You go down to the Chartable rankings, and you can see that Chartable Podcast Global All Podcast Reach 25. Now, I want to be careful here with Chartable's numbers. Chartable's numbers are industry only. This means that if you are not signed up for Chartable, you don't rank. So it excludes a ton of big podcasts. I'm not sure even Joe Rogan is listed on Chartable. So the Chartable numbers are kind of bunk. I think Timcast IRL is like number 60 or something on Chartable. Meaningless. And then the last number I checked, I think we were like, I don't know what number Timcast IRL is. We bounce around. We are bigger on YouTube. So number 105. Hey man, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. You know. Here's Joe Rogan. What's this say? 1. Every single number. 1. Are you kidding me, dude? Apple Podcasts, number 1. Comedy, number 1. Great Britain, 1. Canada, 1. Spotify, 1. Great Britain, Spotify, 1. Canada, 1. He's got 277,000 ratings. Bro, you've got 14,852. It's absolutely wild. It's 15 times bigger than your show. Okay, hold on. Maybe you're too busy looking at them YouTube numbers. Okay, let's see what we got here. We got Breakfast Club on YouTube. This is a Social Blade. You gained 30,000 subs last month. That's pretty good. You've got 29.391 million views for the past 30 days. That's also pretty good. And you got 5 million subscribers. Hey, man, you got a big show, and you're one of the biggest. That's great. I mean, I genuinely mean that. Here's Joe Rogan. He's gained 600,000 subscribers in the last 30 days and 76 million views. But hold on. Okay, fine. To be fair, you know, you're probably saying, yeah, but he did one big interview with Trump and got 37 million. Okay, knock that off. It's not, the numbers aren't updated for today. They have partial numbers today, 6 million. So let's just say, based on what we see on YouTube, so he's got 40 and you got 29. He's still a lot bigger. But let's be real as well. I mean, Kamala Harris goes on Charlemagne and she gets 500,000 views or whatever it is. Joe Rogan has Trump and it's 37 million. This is wild to me. I'm not trying to pick on Charlemagne. I just think it's funny that anybody thinks they can go toe to toe with Joe. There's a reason why he's the biggest podcast. First in, best dressed. He's a comedian. He's funny. It's relatable. People like his show. He's got 5.5 billion views. Hey, shout out. Breakfast Club's got 3.2. You're a big show, but you are not the same as Joe Rogan. Just that's crazy to me. You do a big interview with Donald Trump. I think Schultz is right when he says, like, you had Soulja Boy on. Soulja Boy's huge. So of course you can get a ton of views. Exactly. He has an interview with Trump. Of course he's going to get a ton of views. It is fair to say that if you look at Joe's videos, he gets like 1 million, sometimes 3 million, sometimes 500,000 on YouTube. But that's because he split his podcast up among Spotify, Apple, and YouTube these days. I'm going to say it, though. As much as I consider Joe Rogan a friend and a good dude, he's not as big as he was. When he left Apple to go to Spotify, I do believe it negatively impacted his reach. He had real estate you can't buy. So because he was first in and best dressed, whenever you'd open Apple Podcasts, you would see Joe Rogan Experience and regular people would watch. This created a massive exponential curve for Joe Rogan in reaching new people that money can't buy. You can't buy that position on Apple. Otherwise, everybody would. I mean, maybe they should sell it. When Joe went to Spotify, he left, and a lot of new people who got into podcasting got in on Spotify, and this was the deal with Spotify, and Spotify added a ton of people. But without that Apple real estate, I do believe that once Joe left Spotify and spread everything around, it just generally lowered his views all around. No disrespect, Joe had on Social Blade at the time 200 million. I don't know if they show the full curve, but they don't because it only goes back a couple of years. But before Joe dipped out, his views were substantially higher. You can see here's this is the month of June where he got 1.6 billion views. I believe that's likely a glitch. Oh, no, actually, that might be. They uploaded all of their episodes at once, I think. That may be what happened. Anyway, my friends, Schultz is correct. Joe Rogan is the cream of the crop, best of the best. Everybody wishes they were there. I mean, I'm sure going on Breakfast Club is good. You're going to get it, it's going to be great. You're going to get a lot of views. But I got to be honest. Everybody and their grandmother is asking somebody who knows Joe to get them on Joe's show. And I'm like, never going to happen. Like, dude, it's never going to happen. And I get asked all the time. And I'm like, bro, I can't hit up Rogan like that. Like, you're crazy. Look, but you know him. Dude, it don't work that way. It doesn't. That would be such a, like, I don't know, people are, it happens to me too. People will say, like, they reach out to a guest we've had. Can you get me on Tim Pool's show or whatever? And people do not ask because it's just like, we have a booking process for this. I'm not trying to be a dick, but if my phone rings off the hook already. So it is what it is. I'm going to wrap this up. Kamala Harris was given an opportunity to go on Joe's show, and she said, no, you come here and I'll let you interview me for 1 hour. And Joe was like, that's not the Joe Rogan experience. That is, in my opinion, declining. So call it whatever you want. I think it's fair to say that if Joe says, come on the show, here are the terms, this is the way the show is always done, and you say, no, do it this way instead, they've outright declined you. But whatever. Joe says she didn't decline the negotiating. Maybe something will happen. I'm going to wrap it up there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We got more segments coming up throughout the day. Next at 1 p.m. Don't miss it. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.